The Vex Empire had been preparing the assault for 312 years. It was to be the most coordinated military operation in the galaxy's recorded history. 7 simultaneous invasions of human territory, attacking from different vectors, with overwhelming force designed to break human defensive capability in a single coordinated strike. The Vex believed their strategy was flawless. 7 invasions at once meant humanity would be forced to split their defensive resources across 7 different battlefields. With resources divided, humanity would be unable to mount an effective defense at any single location. The invasions would succeed through mathematical inevitability. The Vex Empire commander, Admiral Vortok, reviewed the invasion plan with absolute confidence. "We will crush humanity across 7 battlefields simultaneously," Vortok declared. "They have no way to defend against this level of coordinated assault." The 7 invasion fleets, numbering 847 capital ships combined, began their approach vectors toward human space. What Admiral Vortok did not understand was that he was looking at only a fraction of what humanity had prepared for this moment. The human preparation 70 years before the Vex invasion fleet arrived, humanity had recognized that a coordinated multi-front assault was inevitable. The question was not whether such an assault would come. The question was when. Commander Alexandra Park had spent 70 years overseeing the development of something unprecedented, 70 separate defensive fleets, each with sufficient military capability to defend against a major assault independently. These 70 fleets were not held at the Vex invasion points. They were not positioned where standard military doctrine would place them. Instead, they were hidden throughout human space, in regions that sensor systems would classify as empty, in asteroid fields, in spatial anomalies, in places where military hardware could be maintained without detection. 70 hidden fleets. The Vex were attacking with 7 fleets, believing they were executing a masterstroke of coordinated assault. They did not understand that humanity had prepared for exactly this type of scenario 70 times over. The assault begins. The Vex invasion commenced at precisely coordinated moments across all 7 fronts. The invasions appeared to unfold exactly as Admiral Vortok had predicted. Human forces were indeed split across multiple defensive positions. Human resources were being divided among 7 different battlefields. The math was working exactly as Vortok's calculations had suggested. At the first human defensive position, human forces numbering 63 capital ships faced a Vex invasion force of 121 ships. By any standard calculation, the human position should have been overrun within hours. But then something unexpected occurred. A second human fleet emerged from jump space behind the Vex invasion force. A fleet numbering 89 capital ships, fully equipped, fully crewed, fully combat ready. The Vex invasion force, suddenly facing human forces from 2 directions, found their overwhelming numerical advantage negated. The pattern repeats at the second invasion front. The same scenario unfolded. Vex forces believed they faced 71 defending human ships. What they actually faced was those 71 ships plus a hidden human fleet of 103 ships that emerged to attack the invasion force from behind. At the third front, a 94-ship human fleet appeared. At the fourth front, 87 human ships. At the fifth front, 112 human ships. At the sixth front, 78 human ships. At the seventh front, 96 human ships. 7 additional fleets, for a total of 669 human ships that the Vex had not anticipated. Admiral Vortok watched in horrified realization as each of his 7 invasion fleets suddenly found itself not attacking a defeated enemy, but facing enemy forces that exceeded their own in numbers. The reversal of the 7 simultaneous invasions, which had been designed to be a coordinated attack overwhelming human defense, suddenly transformed into 7 simultaneous defeats for the Vex. Without the element of surprise, without the numerical advantage they had believed was theirs, without the coordinated assault pattern that had been their greatest strength, the Vex invasion forces found themselves being systematically destroyed. Human forces, which had been positioned from the beginning to defend from overwhelming assault, turned the 7 defensive battles into 7 offensive victories. Admiral Vortok issued the order for retreat at 2:47:32 hours of the first invasion. The order was obeyed, but it was already too late. 4 of the 7 Vex invasion fleets had already suffered 60% casualties. 2 more had suffered 40% casualties. Only 1 fleet managed to withdraw with fewer than 30% losses. The entire coordinated assault, which had been designed as a masterpiece of military planning, had lasted less than 12 hours before transforming into a complete rout. The investigation Admiral Vortok, facing the complete failure of his invasion plan, demanded an immediate investigation into how humanity had prepared such a comprehensive defense. The investigation revealed something that shocked the Vex military establishment. Humanity had not prepared 7 defensive fleets to counter the 7 invasions. Humanity had prepared 70 defensive fleets. They had been holding back 63 additional fleets that had never been deployed, that the Vex had not even suspected existed. The Vortok fleet that had suffered only 30% casualties and been allowed to retreat had encountered the smallest of the hidden human fleets. There were 62 additional fleets that had not been needed to repel the assault. The revelation scoped the realization that humanity possessed 70 hidden fleets of significant military capability triggered shock waves across the galaxy. Every species that had underestimated human military potential suddenly began reassessing. Every civilization that had believed humanity was militarily inferior was forced to confront the reality that humanity had been holding back the vast majority of its military capability. The Conclave Assembly requested immediate clarification from Commander Park about the scope of human military development. Park's response was characteristically straightforward. The Vex attempted a coordinated assault across 7 fronts. We responded with forces sufficient to defend against and repel that assault. We elected not to deploy the majority of our military capability because we did not believe it was necessary. How many total ships are we discussing? The Conclave demanded. Approximately 4,700 capital-class vessels, Park replied calmly. Deployed across 70 defensive fleets positioned throughout human space. The 7 fleets that engaged the Vex comprised fewer than 670 vessels. We held back the majority of our military capacity. The assembly fell into stunned silence. Humanity was not a minor military power. Humanity was one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. And they had revealed only a fraction of their capability. The strategic doctrine in the weeks following the Vex defeat, military analysts across the galaxy attempted to understand the strategic doctrine that humanity had developed. What they discovered was that human strategy was based on something that most military theorists had not considered: preparation for scenarios that seemed unlikely to occur. 70 fleets represented 70 different potential invasion vectors. 70 different scenarios where an enemy might attempt coordinated assault. Humanity had prepared for each scenario independently, with the assumption that the vast majority of those scenarios would never occur. But in preparing for the unlikely scenario, humanity had also prepared for the actual scenario. The Vex had believed they were conducting an unprecedented assault. In reality, they were engaging in one specific scenario that humanity had already planned for decades in advance. The philosophical implication: the revelation of the 70 hidden fleets triggered a philosophical shift in how the galaxy understood military strategy. For millennia, military strategy had been based on preparing for the most likely scenario and allocating resources accordingly. You identified the probable threat and prepared for it. Humanity, it appeared, had inverted this approach. Humanity identified all possible threats and prepared for each of them independently. They allocated resources not based on probability but based on the principle that comprehensive preparation was superior to efficient preparation. This approach had a profound implication. It meant that humanity could respond effectively to any assault that fell within the scope of their planning. It meant that attackers could never surprise humanity because humanity had already prepared for the surprise. Admiral Vortok's recalculation: Admiral Vortok, having been thoroughly defeated, made an extraordinary decision. He requested to observe human military command structures directly, to understand how humanity had achieved such comprehensive preparedness. What he discovered was something that challenged fundamental assumptions about military organization. Human military doctrine was not based on concentration of forces or superior technology. It was based on distributed defense and comprehensive preparation. Instead of one central command coordinating all forces, multiple command structures operated independently. Instead of optimizing for the most probable scenario, they prepared for every possible scenario. It meant human military forces were less efficient than traditional military structures. But it also meant they could respond to unexpected scenarios with a level of readiness that traditional structures could not achieve. The military reformation following Vortok's analysis, militaries across the galaxy began reorganizing. The Dven reformed their military structure to include distributed defense across multiple independent fleets rather than concentrating all forces under central command. The Sorith began developing comprehensive threat response protocols for multiple invasion scenarios rather than preparing only for the most probable threat. The coalition of ancient worlds established hidden reserve fleets modeled on humanity's approach. The entire galaxy's military organization began a slow transformation based on what humanity had demonstrated through their preparation for the Vex assault. The unexpected recognition 5 years after the Vex invasion, the Conclave formally recognized humanity's military achievement. The recognition was not just for the defeat of the Vex. The recognition was for the strategic vision that had made that defeat possible. Humanity has demonstrated a military doctrine based on comprehensive preparation rather than efficient optimization. This doctrine has proven superior to traditional military organization in responding to coordinated multi-front assault. The galaxy has much to learn from humanity's approach to strategic defense. The broader implication 10 years after the Vex invasion, historians began analyzing what the 70 fleets truly represented. The analysis suggested something profound. The 70 fleets were not military overkill. They were preparation for a scenario that humanity understood was inevitable. Humanity had recognized that as their power increased, powerful empires would eventually attempt coordinated assault. Humanity had prepared not for one probable scenario, but for multiple scenarios of escalating complexity. The Vex had attempted 7 simultaneous invasions. Humanity had prepared for 70 possible invasion scenarios. The mathematical disproportion between what the Vex believed humanity would prepare for and what humanity actually prepared for was the entire foundation of human strategic success. Commander Park's reflection in her final address before retirement, Commander Park explained the logic behind the 70 hidden fleets. 70 years ago, I made a calculation. I calculated that humanity would eventually face a sophisticated enemy capable of coordinated multi-front assault. I calculated that we could not predict when that assault would come or from which vector it would originate. So I made a decision: we would prepare for 70 different possible scenarios. She paused. That decision meant allocating vast resources to military preparation. It meant developing infrastructure that would never be used. It meant maintaining fleets that might never see combat. It meant efficiency loss across all sectors of our military. Park continued with words that explained the human strategic philosophy. But it also meant that when the Vex attempted their assault, we were already prepared. We had already faced that scenario in our planning. We had already developed responses. We had already positioned forces. We had already understood the tactical dynamics. She looked directly at those who would come after her. The greatest strategic advantage is not superiority in individual battles. The greatest advantage is comprehensive preparation. The species that prepares for all possible scenarios will inevitably have a response prepared when any actual scenario occurs. The legacy of preparation 50 years after the Vex invasion, the revelation of the 70 hidden fleets had transformed how every civilization in the galaxy approached military strategy. The phrase, the 70 fleets doctrine, became synonymous with comprehensive preparation. Military academies taught the principle that it was better to be over-prepared for multiple scenarios than to be optimally prepared for a single probable scenario. The Vex invasion, which was intended to be humanity's defeat, became instead the moment that demonstrated humanity's superior strategic thinking. The final truth 100 years after the Vex invasion, a declassified document, revealed something that changed the interpretation of the entire incident. The 70 hidden fleets were not the extent of humanity's military capability. Humanity had actually prepared for 247 different invasion scenarios. They had chosen to deploy only the 70 fleets corresponding to scenarios where enemy forces were expected to use traditional invasion tactics. There were 177 additional fleets prepared for non-traditional scenarios: biological warfare, temporal manipulation, consciousness-based attacks, and strategies that had not yet been conceived of by the broader galactic community. The Vex invasion had not even engaged humanity's deepest layers of defensive preparation. The eternal vigilance 200 years after the Vex invasion, historians asked a simple question: would humanity ever reveal the full extent of their military preparation? The answer appeared to be no. Humanity maintained the posture of comprehensive preparation without acknowledging exactly how comprehensive. By keeping the scope of their preparation somewhat mysterious, humanity maintained a deterrent effect that actual disclosure could not have achieved. Species remained uncertain about whether humanity had other hidden fleets, other hidden capabilities, other layers of preparation that had not been revealed. That uncertainty itself became the greatest element of deterrence. The philosophical recognition as centuries passed and the Vex invasion receded into history, the galaxy recognized something about humanity that they had not appreciated before. Humanity did not think about military capability in terms of efficiency or optimization. Humanity thought about it in terms of preparation and response. Where other civilizations asked, "What is the minimum force required to meet this threat?" humanity asked, "What forces do we need prepared for every possible threat that could occur?" It was a fundamentally different approach. It was less efficient. But it was incomparably more effective.